No! I had originally planned that for the intro of this video, I would wear all that was left of the dress shirt to show you how economizing I was with that dress shirt, but I already threw out the trash. Today is a couple of things merged together. One, being very frugal. Two, trying to care for the environment. And three, taking a little inspiration from the internet as usual. Actually, all three of those things are pretty usual here. Off we go. We're going to be making a skirt from a dress shirt. This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I finally found the visual inspiration that made me feel confident that I could do it. I feel like I'm kind of matching the color of that skirt. It's got a cute ruffle at the bottom, this nice little tie in the front. I thought I could do this out of a dress shirt, and so that is what is about to happen. Let's do it. Also, this shirt has a really cute Mickey Mouse detail. He's like falling, and then there's like more stuff. Anyways, that's just a secret between you and me. Here is the dress shirt that we're starting with. I loved that it had little red stripes because I think that's something that translates really nicely into ladies' summer wear. The men's dress shirts are nice too because they're reasonably opaque, and I think this one had a baggy enough fit that I could work with it. This is a pattern that I made previously from another skirt that I own. If you've been wondering how to trace darts from an existing item, please go check out the video in my description. But this is the skirt pattern that came out of it. I have the front and the back all built into one, so I just kind of fold whichever side I don't need out of the way and trace the one that I'm interested in. I decided to put the button placket right down the front middle of my skirt, so I flipped the entire shirt, putting the buttons all the way along the edge, and then placing the center seam of the front pattern right along those buttons. I did include a seam allowance in the pattern that I traced, so I just went ahead and followed that. Now, to maximize the fabric, I did creep as far up into the sleeve as I possibly could. This did mean that when I cut the pattern, there was a tiny bit of the sleeve piece hovering over there in the corners, but that didn't bother me too much because I feel like it just adds a fun dimension. Before I wrap up with the front pattern piece, I marked the location of the darts onto the inside of the front skirt, both sides, making sure they're symmetrical. And as an experiment, I did decide to keep that front pocket, so my skirt has a pocket already. Now for the back of the skirt, we fold that front half of the pattern out of the way. I crept as far up the dress shirt as I possibly could, and it will become obvious later why this was necessary. Again, like with the front, I made sure that I marked the location of the darts onto the inside of the skirt using a pencil or any other washable or disappearing marking material would work great. As we continue to destroy this dress shirt completely, I cut the sleeves off at a 90-degree angle, and with the remaining bottom of the shirt, I laid all nice and flat and cut for myself this like 10 centimeter strip, as well as maintaining the entire bottom as is because we need that for the ruffle. Now then, taking those dart markings, you'll want to draw a straight line from the top opening of the dart all the way to the apex, the point of the dart. Once you draw those two lines, then you can use pins to hold it in a folded position. I like to put pins in that are fully aligned with my pencil drawing on both sides, and that way, if I sew along that pencil drawing with those pins, I will be guaranteed to seal off the dart as intended. With the dart, start at the opening at the top, and then just keep moving along the lines that you've drawn, pulling out the pins as you go. Once you get to the apex, do a couple more ghost stitches. This creates a nice little chain with the thread, and then cut it off with plenty of thread to spare so that you can tie a nice little knot and your dart will hopefully never ever ever unravel. After putting in the darts, I did press the shirt to make it nice and smooth. One thing I did here that's a little bit weird, but I'm happy about it, is I did not let the pocket fabric go into the dart. So that made it so that my pocket was still fully accessible. It does make your pocket a little lumpy, but I'm happy with how it turned out. So if you want this result, this is how it's done. I'm going to take that roughly 10 centimeter strip that I created, and I'm going to cut it in half down the middle to create two slightly curved strips. These are going to be used to finish off the top edge of the skirt so that it's nice and clean. Step one of this is to sew a zigzag stitch along the entire outer curved edge, the side that is convex, not concave. And that's just to finish it off. This is going to be exposed in the end, so you don't want it to fray. Next, I pinned the raw edge of this little strip to the top raw edge of the skirt, right sides touching. We're going to sew that together with a straight stitch all along the curve. Flip that over completely, give it a good press, and now this has finished off the top edge of the skirt without any unsightly seam lines. There's a lot of other ways to finish off this skirt, like you could have thrown in a waistband, but the skirt style that I was imitating had this kind of top, so this is what we did. And now with the sleeves, I sewed 2 straight stitches along the edge on the longest stitch length possible, and this is so that we can gather the sleeve. This top one here, as you can see, is already gathered up, and here on the right, I'm showing you how I did that. There's a first stitch, there's a second stitch. Cleanly separate the 2 threads that are on top and the 2 threads that are on the bottom, and here I'm tying together the 2 threads that are on the top, and then on the opposite side I cleanly separate the 2 top threads from the 2 bottom threads, and I tie together the 2 bottom threads. Then taking any of the untied threads, hold them firmly and start tugging on the fabric, and this will help it to all gather up. I pinned these 2 disembodied sleeves onto the 2 hips of the front of my skirt, and we're going to sew those in place with a straight stitch. Now picking either your right hip or your left hip, whichever one you prefer, you're going to line up the front and the back of the skirt completely and sew it all down with one straight stitch. With the remaining free side, I'm going to insert this 9-inch invisible zipper. If it is your first time sewing with an invisible zipper, do check out the link in my description for a more detailed explanation because it can get a little topsy-turvy. I pinned the zipper to the top opening, letting the teeth run just a bit past that top seam so that I know for sure that my zipper will run all the way to the top of the skirt. I like to pin one side and sew it in place first, then pin and sew the opposite side. The last step with the invisible zipper is to sew from the bottom of the skirt all the way until you just pass the first stitches that hold the invisible zipper in place. That will create the bottom of your invisible zipper. So try to get as close as possible to maximize how much zipper you have and also make sure it looks nice and smooth. The very bottom of that dress shirt is going to be used to create the ruffle of our skirt. So first I removed the button so that I'm working with a blank slate. But one concern I have was that this bottom of the dress shirt was not going to be long enough to give me enough ruffle. So really going in to milk every last bit from the dress shirt, I managed to salvage these 2 rectangles that are roughly the same height as the ruffle. I'm pretty sure these came from the collarbone area of the dress shirt. The first step was to hem the entire bottom, so I fold in a tiny bit, sew a straight stitch, then fold it over once more, sew another straight stitch. It's just a really easy way to make a very clean and narrow stitch. And then next I sewed it right sides together to the big dress shirt bottom so that after adding these 2 rectangles, it is now enough length to create some ruffle action. If you're a longtime viewer on my channel, you know exactly what we are about to do. I'm going to pin this ruffle to the skirt, just starting in the front middle, then doing the back middle, then doing the 2 sides, and then just kind of adding a pin every halfway point all the way around. We're going to sew all the way around with a straight stitch, and the real tedious part is that you've now kind of created benchmarks for yourself, but you will have to hand ruffle the skirt as you go around. It's not too bad. Make sure your bobbin is fully loaded and just go for it. This is the original dress shirt, hopefully something really easy for you to find at a thrift shop. And here is our finished summer skirt. I'm so happy with it. I already got to wear it out and take some photos in it. It was a teeny bit too big in the waist, so I did add an extra dart in the back right down the middle. I don't know if you can see with this finish at the top. It kind of does have a little bit of a tendency of flipping up. So what I did was I made sure I pressed it first, and then here along the side seams, I added like a teeny tiny little straight stitch on the side, in that back dart, on the other side, and in the front, just trying to camouflage it with existing stitches, but it helped to provide a little bit of an anchor to hold down that inner fabric. If you make this yourself, which I truly believe you can, use hashtag made with Wendy so that I can see it and celebrate with you. You can find more pictures on my Instagram. It is @withwendy. I hope you enjoy this little shirt to skirt transformation, and if you're subscribed, then I'll see you next time. Bye bye.